Today I'll be presenting on Plain Sign Language, also known as PSL or Hand Talk. Plain Sign Language has a large range of use, from northern Mexico to mid-Canada, and covers around 1 million square miles. Spoken by dozens of tribes, with 37 languages spanning over 12 different language families. It has dozens of dialects. In 1527, the Spanish soldier Panfilio de Narvaez was the first to document the existence of Plain Sign Language on Galveston Island off the shore of what is now modern-day Houston. While living among the Karankawa, him and his crewmates saw many tribes communicating to each other with just their hands. Indigenous people argue there is even older evidence for hand talk in the rock paintings and pictographs made by their ancestors, as many depictions are similar to the signs found in hand talk. The introduction of the horse in the late 1600s led to the replacement of Plateau Sign Language with Plain Sign Language, and the forced removal of tribes from the east led to the replacement of their sign languages with Plain Sign Language. Hand talk played a pivotal role in the Lewis and Clark expedition, where there were many instances that hand talk was the sole form of communication that could be used. There was an intertribal gathering on September 4th to 6th, 1930, located in Browning, Montana on the Blackfeet Reservation. The meeting was filmed and funded by U.S. Congress. It brought together 18 representatives of 12 different tribes, held with the goal of documenting and preserving Plain Sign Language. Each representative cited their name, tribal affiliation, and introductory comments. Hand talk was used in a variety of ways by hearing and deaf people alike. This included activities that required silence like hunting and raids, communicating between long distances such as across a large room or a landscape. It was a language used for trade as well as a general lingua franca among the various Great Plains nations, and a language of culture used during rituals and storytellings. There is relatively not a large consensus on the origins of Plain Sign Language. Some say it arose from deaf communities, and others say it started out as a pidgin trade language. Some say it developed first in northern Mexico and southern Texas, and others debate that. There are oral histories and legends describing the origins of hand talk, but I was unfortunately unable to locate any of them. There is a large variation in fluency, from person to person and tribe to tribe. Some tribes there were only a few fluent translators, and in other tribes just about everyone was able to fluently use the language. Arapaho elders tell of a time when all children learned to sign, and that just about everyone would sign while they were speaking. The most proficient tribes were thought to be the Crow, Northern Cheyenne, Blackfoot, and Kiowa. Some sources I have read stated that there is only a core vocabulary of around 1,000 words, while some dictionaries have listings of over 3,000. It seems like a large portion of PSO vocabulary consists of compound words, as in two signs signed together. There are 4 main parameters when it comes to hand talk: location, movement, hand shape, and orientation. Like most sign languages, facial expression played an important role in communicating tone and emotion. For locations, sign can change meaning depending on where on the body they are signed. Examples would be left or right of the torso, above, behind, and to the side of the head, and many body parts, including chin, eye, shoulder, forearm, ear, wrist, elbow, etc. For movement, signs can change meaning based on whether or not they are stationary. Examples of movements can include downward, upwards, forwards, backwards, diagonal up and right, diagonal down and left, various types of arches and circles, and more. Hand shape is the most important parameter to distinguish different signs, referring to the literal shape of the hand. Orientation refers to the way the palm is facing, including up, down, towards the signer, away from the signer, etc. Unfortunately, I was not very successful in locating a lot of information on the grammar of hand talk, but I was able to find some. Hand talk is completely unrelated nor tied to any specific language. It has a flexible word order, but has a tendency to use subject, object, verb. It has classifiers, also known as measure words. That is a word or an affix that accompanies a noun and classifies them depending on its type. I could not find a good example in hand talk, and English does not have any, but a good example that I can give would be in Mandarin. To say 5 books, you would say wu, 5, ben, a classifier for bound items, and shu, a book. To say that pen, you would say na, that, zhi, a classifier for flat items, b, pen. They work essentially the same way in sign languages, except they're a hand shape. Classifiers tend to paint a more precise picture of what your object looked like or of what happened. It is a head initial language. A head is the word in a phrase that determines its syntactic category. An example of a noun phrase would be for women, but in PSL it would be women for. The verb inflection or conjugation for PSL is supposedly typical of signed languages. Conjugation refers to how a verb changes to show a different person, tense, number, or mood. I could not find a good example in PSL, but to conjugate in ASL, for example, you can slightly change the movements of a sign or just change the order of the words altogether. Temporal adverbs like today, yesterday, tomorrow, now, later, often, always, never, etc. typically begin at the beginning or the end of a sentence. A graphic transcription of this language was used to communicate on and off reservations during the period of colonization and boarding schools. Parents of Kiowa boarding school student Belo Kozad sent letters in this written format to their son. At the top, you'll notice a rectangular picture. You'll see a circle followed by 4 loops. That signifies 4 brothers. 3 horizontal lines stand for the number 3. A box with vertical lines followed by a swooping downward and then upward line means that someone has been buried in a grave. Together, the signs tell Kozad that he no longer had 4 brothers, but only 3. One had recently died and been buried. On the picture furthest to the right, you'll notice a large X towards the top of the page. This is Kozad's parents telling him, through signs, that Jesus is looking down over all the teepees and beyond the 4 cardinal directions, communicating to him that Jesus is watching over all Native Americans.